Welcome to the shadows of Sacramento, the 20 most haunting stories from the historic city cemetery. Nestled deep in the heart of California's capital lies a resting place shrouded in mystery, sorrow, and spirits that refuse to rest. The Sacramento Historic City Cemetery, founded in 1849, stands not just as a silent tribute to the pioneers and souls of the past, but as a gateway to the unknown. Its towering oaks whisper secrets, and its worn headstones mark the final chapters of lives lived and lost. But with them linger stories darker than the deepest night. Tonight, we journey into this haunted ground. These aren't just tales of ghosts or fleeting shadows. They are echoes of tragedy, restless souls, and chilling encounters that have confounded visitors, historians, and locals alike for over a century. From phantom children laughing beneath the moonlight to ghostly processions that reappear at dusk. The Sacramento Historic City Cemetery is a labyrinth of the supernatural. Prepare yourself for a journey where history and horror entwine, and the veil between the living and the dead grows thin. These are the 20 most haunting stories from the Sacramento Historic City Cemetery. Welcome to a place where the past never dies, and neither do its secrets. The Phantom Bride of Section H is one of the most chilling and frequently reported apparitions haunting the Sacramento Historic City Cemetery. Her story is woven with tragedy, sorrow, and a restless spirit caught forever between life and death. Those who have ventured near Section H during the cold, early hours before dawn have recounted unsettling encounters with a young woman dressed in a tattered white wedding gown, her translucent veil fluttering softly in the night breeze. Her presence is marked not just by sight, but by the mournful cries that drift quietly through the stillness of the cemetery, carrying the weight of a broken promise. Legend holds that she was once a bride full of hope and joy, a woman ready to begin a new life with the man she loved. However, fate dealt her a cruel hand. On the eve of her wedding day, after the wedding dress was sewn and the guests had been invited, she fell ill suddenly and mysteriously, despite the best efforts of doctors and loved ones, and she passed away in the cold grip of night, just hours before she was to say her vows. The shock and grief that followed were felt deeply by the small community and especially by the groom, whose heart shattered along with hers. Since that tragic night, witnesses have reported glimpses of the Phantom Bride wandering near her final resting place in Section H. Her figure is described as ethereal and fragile, with the edges of her gown and veil appearing almost transparent against the darkness. Many describe a haunting beauty, yet tinged with profound sadness. She moves slowly, sometimes pausing as if searching the horizon or listening for something just beyond reach. Those who see her say she appears lost an eternal wanderer, trapped in a moment of heartbreak and unfulfilled dreams. People who have encountered her often describe a sudden drop in temperature, as if the very air around her is mourning. This chill intensifies the already somber atmosphere of the cemetery, causing goosebumps and a shiver that runs deeper than the cold. Alongside the drop in temperature comes an overwhelming sense of sorrow. Witnesses say it is not just sadness, but a tangible weight of despair that fills the air, pressing on their chest and filling their hearts with melancholy. Some locals have shared stories of hearing her mournful cries echo softly through the mist, carried on the wind. The sound is said to be a mix of whispered longing and sorrowful lament, a ghostly refrain that seems to plead for the lost future she was denied. The cries are rarely loud or sudden. Instead, they linger quietly, fading and returning like a heartbeat, haunting the silence of the early morning hours. Those brave enough to approach the spot where the Phantom Bride is often said to appear describe seeing her eyes deep pools of sadness that seem to reach through the veil of death itself. Many who have seen her claim that her gaze holds a message, a silent plea for remembrance and understanding. It is as if she is reaching out to anyone who will listen, begging them to bear witness to her untold story. There are tales of those who, upon witnessing the Phantom Bride, have felt a profound empathy, an aching connection to the sorrow she carries. Some have even claimed to see fleeting images of a man waiting nearby, a shadowy figure believed to be her groom standing helplessly, unable to cross the boundary that separates life from death. Together, They remain divided, one forever bound to the earth, the other lost to time. The legend of the Phantom Bride has been passed down through generations, becoming a part of the local folklore that binds the community to its history. Her story serves as a poignant reminder of love interrupted and lives cut short. More than just a ghost story, it is a tale of human fragility and the enduring power of hope and loss. Over the years, the cemetery has drawn curious visitors, paranormal investigators, and those seeking a glimpse of the unknown, all hoping to encounter the elusive bride. Some come with skepticism, but many leave with an unshakable feeling that they have witnessed something beyond explanation. The sightings are sporadic and unpredictable, but when the conditions are right, when the mist rolls in thick and the night is silent, the Phantom Bride is said to make her appearance. Her story is also a warning. Those who disrespect the cemetery or disturb its peace are said to invoke her wrath, bringing misfortune or a chilling encounter that leaves them shaken. It is believed that the Phantom Bride protects the grounds she once called home, ensuring that the sanctity of her resting place remains undisturbed. Even today, as modern life bustles just beyond the cemetery's gates, the spirit of the Phantom Bride remains. She is a spectral reminder of the past, a silent guardian of lost dreams, forever wandering the grounds of Section H, searching for a love that was taken too soon. Her presence lingers in the cold, early dawn, where sorrow and hope entwine, and the veil between worlds is thinnest. Beneath the sprawling branches of a towering oak tree in the Civil War section of the Sacramento Historic City Cemetery lies the grave of Private Thomas Harding, a Union soldier whose story has become legend among locals and visitors alike. Though his name may not appear in the history books, the sorrow tied to his memory lingers palpably in the air, felt most deeply during the rainy nights when the wind carries with it whispers of the past. Private Harding was a young man when he enlisted to fight in the bloody Civil War, leaving behind a small hometown filled with loved ones who prayed for his safe return. Like many soldiers, he endured the brutal hardships of battle, the deafening roar of cannon fire, the cries of fallen comrades, and the relentless struggle to survive against overwhelming odds. Yet, unlike many who returned home, Harding did not live to see peace. Wounded and weary, he succumbed, far from the comforts of family and friends, buried anonymously beneath the protective arms of an ancient oak tree. Over time, stories began to circulate about a restless spirit who haunted his grave. Witnesses, on stormy nights, describe hearing a sorrowful sound carried by the rain, a soft, almost inaudible sobbing that chills the bone. Alongside this haunting lament comes the unmistakable metallic clink of armor, as if the soldier's faded blue uniform still bears the weight of battle. These sounds rise and fall like waves, echoing through the quiet cemetery and reminding those nearby of the cost of war. On some nights, visitors claimed to glimpse a faint figure kneeling beside Harding's grave, his form translucent yet unmistakably human. Dressed in a weathered blue uniform, the soldier's head is bowed low, his shoulders trembling with invisible grief. His face is often shrouded in shadow, making it impossible to fully see the expression etched there. But those who have stared into the darkness insist the sorrow he carries is impossible to miss. One particularly chilling account comes from a group of paranormal investigators who visited the cemetery during a storm. Equipped with cameras and audio devices, they hoped to document the spectral presence rumored to haunt this part of the grounds. Late into the night, their equipment recorded a shadowy figure kneeling at the grave of Private Harding. The figure remained motionless for long moments, its face hidden in the gloom. Yet the heavy sadness it radiated was unmistakable. The sound of muffled sobbing filled the air, punctuated occasionally by the metallic ring of armor, shifting a stark contrast to the rain softly tapping on leaves. This haunting has become more than just a ghost story. It serves as a solemn reminder of the countless lives shattered by the Civil War and the invisible scars borne by those who fought. Private Harding's spirit seems unable to find rest, trapped in a limbo of grief and remembrance. His presence in the cemetery offers a glimpse into the personal toll of war beyond battles and politics, a human story of loss and heartbreak. Some believe that Hauntings' spirit remains tied to this earth by unfinished business, or perhaps by a lingering sense of duty to protect the sacred ground where so many soldiers have been laid to rest. Others think his soul is forever mourning the friends he lost, the battles he witnessed, and the home he will never see again. Whatever the cause, the weeping soldier stands as a powerful symbol of sacrifice and sorrow. Visitors to the cemetery on rainy evenings often report an overwhelming heaviness in the air, as if the grief itself has taken physical form. The oak tree under which Harding lies seems to weep with him, its leaves rustling mournfully, even when the wind is still. Some who have experienced the haunting describe an inexplicable urge to pause and reflect, to honor the memory of a man who gave everything yet was denied peace. Despite the sadness, many who encounter the weeping soldier say the experience is oddly comforting, a reminder that even in death, the bonds of humanity endure. His ghostly vigil encourages visitors to remember the cost of freedom and to hold close the stories of those who came before. Local historians have tried to piece together the life of Private Thomas Harding, poring over military records and personal letters. Though details remain scarce, one letter found among Harding's belongings reveals a glimpse of his soul, a heartfelt message to his mother, expressing hope for the war's end and a yearning to return home. Tragically, that hope was never fulfilled. The cemetery itself is a place where history is etched, not only in stone, but in spirit. The weeping soldier's presence is a living part of that history, a reminder that the past is never truly gone. His story invites all who visit to look beyond the names on the headstones and see the human lives behind them, full of dreams, fears, and untold sorrow. The legend of Private Harding, the weeping soldier, continues to captivate those who hear it. His apparition is said to appear most vividly during storms, when the sky mourns along with him. On those nights, the cemetery becomes a place where time stands still, and the veil between the living and the dead thins. For some, encountering the weeping soldier is a moment of eerie fascination. For others, it is a deeply emotional experience that connects them to the sacrifices of a forgotten generation. The sobbing soldier kneeling beneath the oak tree is a ghost, not of malice or terror, but of grief and echo of a painful history that still calls out from the shadows. In a world that often forgets the personal stories behind grand historical events, the weeping soldier remains a poignant figure, silently bearing witness to the cost of conflict. His presence in the Sacramento Historic City Cemetery reminds us that every life lost in war carries with it a story of love, loss, and the hope for peace. So, when the rain begins to fall and the wind whispers through the branches of that ancient oak, listen closely. You may hear the soft sobbing of Private Thomas Harding, the weeping soldier, still mourning, still remembering, and still waiting for a peace that never came. Near the center of the Sacramento Historic City Cemetery lies a small, forgotten playground. Its swings long rusted, and its slides weathered by time and neglect. Once, this playground was a lively place, filled with the joyous noise of children playing and laughter ringing through the air. But now, it sits silent, an abandoned, eerie remnant of a past that still lingers, tethered by sorrow and memories. This playground stands on the grounds that once housed an orphanage, a place where countless children, many of whom never lived to see adulthood, found their final resting place. The orphanage served as a sanctuary in life, but, tragically, also became a final home for many young souls. Over the decades, stories began to surface about strange occurrences near the playground, sounds of laughter without a source, the faint echo of footsteps running across the grass, and the gentle creaking of swings moving in the absence of wind. Visitors who wander close often speak of hearing distant giggles floating through the air, soft and playful, yet tinged with an otherworldly quality that sends chills down the spine. The laughter does not seem to come from anywhere visible. It simply surrounds the listener, as if invisible children are playing just beyond the edge of sight. Some say that when the cemetery is shrouded in mist, the playground seems to come alive with the presence of those who once played, their lost children reaching out from beyond the veil. One of the most unsettling reports comes from a late-night jogger who often ran through the quiet paths of the cemetery. On one particularly still and moonlit night, the jogger stopped suddenly, drawn by a faint melody carried on the breeze. It was a soft, lilting lullaby, sung with delicate voices that seemed both distant and intimately close. The air around the playground was thick with whispers, fragmented words, and soft voices, as if unseen children were trying desperately to tell their stories, to reach out across the gulf of time and space. The jogger described the experience as both haunting and beautiful. The lullaby wove through the air like a gentle invitation, pulling at the heart and stirring emotions that were difficult to explain. Yet, despite the alluring music, a deep sadness hung over the playground, a reminder that these voices came from souls who had known pain and loss. When the jogger glanced toward the swings, they moved slowly, creaking in rhythm with the unseen lullaby. Yet no one was there, only the rusted chains swaying in the still night air. Many who have ventured near the playground at dusk or after dark recount similar sensations, feeling of being watched by unseen eyes, or the fleeting impression of small figures darting just out of the corner of vision. Sometimes, faint footsteps can be heard running just beyond the path. But when looked at directly, there is nothing but empty grass and the shadows of trees. The sense is not of menace, but of restless innocence, as though these children are caught between worlds, lingering in the place where they once found joy but never truly left. Locals believe the playground serves as a kind of meeting place for these spirits, a patch of ground where their laughter still echoes despite the passage of time. It is said that the children cannot move on, bound to the orphanage grounds by the tragedy that surrounded their short lives. The playground, once a symbol of life and happiness, has become a haunting reminder of loss and unfinished stories. In addition to sounds, some visitors have reported other strange phenomena. A caretaker once spoke of finding tiny handprints in the morning dew, perfectly formed but too small to belong to any living child. Others have felt cold touches on their arms or shoulders as they pass by, as if gentle hands are trying to comfort the living or to guide them away from the shadows. The playground's haunting has attracted ghost hunters and paranormal enthusiasts, many eager to capture evidence of the supernatural. Some have recorded unexplained voices, childlike whispers, pleading for recognition or telling fragmented tales of their brief lives. On video, the rusted swings sometimes begin to sway without wind, and the faint outline of small figures can occasionally be caught moving just beyond the light of flashlights. Despite the eerie reputation, the spirit of the playground is often described as bittersweet rather than frightening. It is a place where innocence lost is mourned and remembered, where the boundary between the living and the dead feels especially fragile. The children's laughter, though ghostly, brings a strange comfort, a reminder that even in death, the echoes of youth and joy persist. The history of the orphanage is a somber backdrop to the haunting. Many of the children buried there died from illnesses, neglect, or accidents, their short lives marked by hardship. The playground was once a small haven where, for fleeting moments, they could forget their troubles and play like any other children. Now, it remains a poignant symbol of hope and heartbreak intertwined. Some say that on clear nights, if you listen carefully, you can hear the children's whispers telling their names, sharing their favorite games, or recounting memories of a time long gone. They ask not for fear or pity, but to be remembered as children who lived, laughed, and loved, however briefly. The Whispering Children's Playground is a place where history and the supernatural meet, where the past's shadows reach out across the years to touch the present. It stands as a testament to lives lost too soon and the enduring spirit of innocence. For those who walk its paths after dark, it is a haunting experience, filled with whispers, laughter, and the poignant reminder that some spirits never truly leave. To visit the playground is to step into a world suspended between joy and sorrow, a place where the laughter of children lost echoes eternally, carried on the wind and whispered through the leaves. It is a haunting that calls to the heart, urging us to remember the forgotten, to honor those whose stories might otherwise fade into silence. The Headless Horseman is one of the most enduring and chilling legends, whispered among the caretakers and visitors of the Sacramento Historic City Cemetery. This eerie tale has been passed down for generations, growing in detail and dread with every retelling. It tells of a rider, a stagecoach driver from the 1800s, who met a brutal and untimely death and whose restless spirit now roams the cemetery as fog-laden paths. Headless and furious. The story begins in the late 19th century, when stagecoach travel was a lifeline for many in Sacramento, carrying passengers and goods through wild, often dangerous territories. One such driver, known only as Jeremiah Blake, was famed for his skill and courage. Blake was said to be a man of principle, always honest and fiercely protective of his passengers and cargo. But his final journey ended in tragedy. According to legend, on a foggy autumn night, Jeremiah was ambushed along a remote stretch near what is now the cemetery grounds. Bandits, eager to steal the valuable goods he carried, attacked him. In the violent scuffle, Jeremiah was brutally murdered, his head severed in the attacking act, meant to send a terrifying message to anyone who dared defy the outlaws. His body was hastily buried, forgotten, in an unmarked grave among the many who now rest in the cemetery. From that night on, strange occurrences began to plague the cemetery, especially on foggy evenings when visibility was low and shadows stretched long. Caretakers reported hearing the thunderous pounding of hooves echoing through the winding paths, growing louder and closer. Yet when they turned to see, there was no horse, no rider, only a cold silence. Some witnesses claimed that the clattering sound of a helmet hitting stone would suddenly ring out, sharp and metallic. The helmet, hollow and empty, was said to bounce and roll across the ground as if propelled by an unseen force. This unsettling noise was often accompanied by sudden gusts of icy wind that swept through the graves, chilling the bones of all who stood nearby. Visitors to the cemetery at night have described the terrifying sensation of an invisible rider charging through the mist, the rhythmic pounding of phantom hooves growing louder and faster. The sound is so vivid and real that some swear it causes the ground to tremble beneath their feet. Yet no matter how quickly they turn or run, they see nothing but swirling fog and empty shadows. Local legend warns that if you hear the approach of the Headless Horseman's gallop, you must resist the urge to look back. Those who do, the story goes, may become the next victims, doomed to wander the cemetery or suffer a fate worse than death. The warning is passed down in hushed tones, a caution to respect the restless spirit and avoid his wrath. There are accounts of brave souls who have attempted to face the haunting directly. One story tells of a group of men who stayed overnight in the cemetery, determined to capture evidence of the Headless Horseman. As the night deepened and fog thickened, they heard the unmistakable galloping grow closer. Suddenly, the helmet clattered nearby, and an icy wind howled around them, but no figure appeared. The men fled before dawn, shaken and unable to explain what they had heard and felt. Another tale involves a lone traveler who dared to cross the cemetery's grounds after dark. As the mist closed in, the pounding hooves grew louder, and a clattering helmet rolled across the path in front of him. Frozen with fear, he did not look back, hurried onward, and later claimed that the sound of furious galloping followed him until he left the cemetery entirely. The Headless Horseman's fury is said to be fueled by injustice and a desire for vengeance. Some believe he rides in eternal torment, reliving the moment of his murder night after night, unable to rest until his killers are brought to justice, even if those men are long dead. Others say his spirit serves as a guardian of the cemetery, warding off intruders with his terrifying presence. Despite the fear he inspires, the legend of the Headless Horseman remains deeply woven into the fabric of the Sacramento Historic City Cemetery's history. He is not just a ghost story, but a reflection of the violent past and the unresolved tragedies that mark the land. On foggy nights, when the air is thick and the moon barely cuts through the mist, some say the galloping begins again. The clatter of helmet against stone echoes through the dark, and the wind carries the ghostly thunder of hooves. The cemetery falls into a heavy silence as the spirit rides past, searching, hunting, forever trapped in a night that refuses to end. Those who know the story urge visitors to tread carefully and respect the ground where the Headless Horseman rides. For if you hear that terrible galloping and the clink of a hollow helmet, do not look back. Keep moving forward, and pray you do not become the next soul caught in the relentless chase of the Headless Horseman. Standing tall over one of the oldest sections of the Sacramento Historic City Cemetery is a majestic statue known as the Silent Sentinel. This towering angel, carved from weathered stone, looms solemnly amidst rows of time-worn gravestones. Its wings, spread protectively, cast long shadows under the light of the moon, but it is the statue's eyes-deep, hollow sockets that have captured the imagination and fear of many who have ventured near after dark. They say those eyes glow with an eerie, otherworldly light, piercing through the darkness, watching every step taken beneath its watchful gaze. For decades, visitors who have wandered through the cemetery late at night recount an unsettling feeling, as if they are never truly alone. The sensation is not one of typical fear or menace, but rather a profound awareness of being observed. Many speak of a subtle shift in the atmosphere when the moon rises high, an almost imperceptible tension that tightens around the chest. It is as if the silent sentinel is alive, silently judging and guarding the souls beneath its vigil. Local lore tells of the statue's origins, dating back to the early 1900s. Erected to honor the many lives lost in the early days of Sacramento's history. But unlike other memorials, the Silent Sentinel carries a darker reputation. It is said to be more than just a stone angel. It is a guardian with a will of its own, tied to the fate of those buried nearby. One of the most chilling accounts involving the Silent Sentinel comes from 1923. The caretaker's wife, a woman who spent many nights alone tending to the grounds, reported an experience that sent shivers through the community. She claimed that while walking near the statue, just after midnight, she saw its arm move. Slowly, deliberately, the stone hand lifted and pointed towards a freshly disturbed grave nearby. Terrified, she alerted her husband, the caretaker, who investigated the grave in the morning. The site had recently been altered, and beneath the disturbed soil lay the remains of a man, long whispered about in local circles a criminal, whose misdeeds had brought shame and curses upon his family. Stories told of a dark curse binding his restless spirit beneath the earth, preventing him from finding peace, even in death. From that day forward, the Silent Sentinel's reputation as a living guardian was cemented in local belief. Many believe the statue's movements serve as warnings or guidance, alerting those who pay attention to unseen disturbances or threats to the cemetery's sanctity. Visitors who have lingered near the statue after dusk report feeling an inexplicable pull towards certain graves, as if urged by an unseen force. Several paranormal investigators who have spent nights in the cemetery describe strange phenomena centered around the Silent Sentinel. Cameras and audio equipment often pick up unexplainable sounds, whispers, faint rustling, and sometimes the sound of stone scraping against stone. A haunting light that cannot be attributed to any known source. The statue's presence is often described as simultaneously comforting and unnerving. It seems to embody a duality: watchful protector and silent judge. Those who come with respect feel a calming presence, as though the angel guards the cemetery with unwavering devotion. But those who come with ill intent or disrespect report a growing sense of dread, as if the statue itself condemns their actions. Legend has it that the Silent Sentinel is bound to the cemetery by more than just stone and mortar. It is said to be imbued with the spirits of the departed, a vessel for their collective sorrow and hope. Some even claim that the statue moves not just its arm but shifts ever so slightly, changing its posture ever so subtly, as if breathing in rhythm with the souls it watches over. The statue's gaze is said to follow visitors wherever they go within its sight line. Nighttime wanderers often find themselves caught in its unblinking stare, unable to look away, feeling as if the angel sees beyond the physical and into the very depths of their soul. This intense feeling has led some to believe the Silent Sentinel judges the living as much as the dead. Over the years, many have left offerings near the base of the statue: flowers, candles, small trinkets, tokens of respect, or perhaps hopes to appease the sentinel's watchful eyes. Some caretakers have even reported finding these offerings mysteriously rearranged in the morning, as if the statue itself had moved them. The story of the criminal whose grave was disturbed remains a cautionary tale. The curse said to bind him is believed to have caused unexplained misfortunes for his descendants and neighbors alike. The silent sentinel's act of pointing towards his grave is interpreted as a warning to the living not to disturb the dead and to respect the fragile balance between this world and the next. The silent sentinel's legend has woven itself deeply into the identity of the cemetery. It serves as a reminder that not all is at rest beneath the earth, and that some guardians remain vigilant long after the final stone is laid. Whether you believe in the supernatural or not, the stories of the silent sentinel compel a respect for the past, a reverence for the dead, and an acknowledgement of the mysteries that linger in the shadows. On nights when the moon is full and the cemetery is cloaked in silver light, the statue's eyes are said to blaze with a spectral glow, casting an eerie light over the grounds. Those who see this phenomenon are often overcome with a mix of awe and fear, sensing that they have witnessed something beyond the veil, a silent protector standing guard over secrets too dark to reveal. The silent sentinel remains one of the most haunting and enigmatic features of the Sacramento Historic City Cemetery. Its towering presence and the stories it inspires remind us that some monuments do more than commemorate. They watch, they warn, and perhaps they live. The story of the Lantern Man is one that has been passed down through generations, whispered around campfires and shared in hushed tones by locals who know the history of the Sacramento Historic City Cemetery. It is a tale wrapped in mystery and shadow, centered on a dedicated groundskeeper from the 19th century, whose nightly routine became something far more eternal than anyone could have imagined. Back in the late 1800s, the cemetery was a place both revered and feared. The grounds were vast, filled with countless graves that stretched beyond the eye could see. Care and vigilance were necessary, and the responsibility often fell to one man, an earnest and steadfast groundskeeper, known simply as Jacob. Every night, Jacob would carry a lantern, its warm glow piercing the darkness as he made his rounds. His lantern was not just a tool for light, but a symbol of his commitment to guarding the resting places of those who had passed. Jacob's nightly walks were a ritual, a solemn duty carried out with great respect. He was known to the townsfolk for his unwavering dedication and gentle demeanor. The lantern's light became a reassuring beacon in the night, a sign that the cemetery was watched over and protected from harm. But one foggy evening, something changed forever. As mist rolled in, thick and heavy, swallowing the paths and cloaking the trees in ghostly white, Jacob set out on his usual patrol. But that night, he did not return. Days turned into weeks, yet no trace of the Lantern Man was ever found. There were no signs of struggle, no clues left behind, just silence, where once there had been light. The mystery of his disappearance grew, and with it, the legend of the Lantern Man was born. From that night onward, visitors to the cemetery on misty evenings have reported seeing a dim, flickering light moving slowly along the winding paths. The light is faint but unmistakable, bobbing as if carried by an invisible hand. Many believe this light is the ghostly lantern carried by Jacob himself, still making his rounds long after his physical form vanished. The Lantern Man's presence is more than a simple apparition. Locals say his spirit watches over the cemetery, a silent guardian ensuring that the sacred grounds remain undisturbed. His lantern's glow serves as a warning to those who might enter with ill intent, protecting the resting places of the departed from vandalism, theft, or disrespect. Yet, the Lantern Man's watchful protection comes with a chilling warning. Several trespassers who have dared to enter the cemetery after hours speak of a cold, unsettling presence following closely behind them, an unseen shadow that mirrors their every step. Though no figure is ever seen, the sensation of being pursued is vivid and terrifying. Those who have felt this chilling presence describe their hearts pounding and a primal fear that compels them to flee. One particular story stands out among many. A young man, curious and skeptical, decided to test the legend on a fog-laden night. Armed with only a flashlight and his bravado, he ventured deep into the cemetery's heart. As he wandered along the narrow, overgrown paths, his flashlight flickered and dimmed, swallowed by the thick fog. Suddenly, he spotted the faint glow of a lantern bobbing in the distance. Intrigued, he followed it, but as he drew closer, an overwhelming chill wrapped around him. He felt breath on the back of his neck and the unmistakable sensation of footsteps echoing just behind his own. Panicked, the young man broke into a run, the light retreating before him. The presence remained, relentless and silent, until he burst through the cemetery gates into the safety of the town. He never returned, forever convinced that the Lantern Man was real and that his spirit still patrols the cemetery grounds. Caretakers and frequent visitors to the cemetery often speak of an unexplainable peace that settles when the lantern-esque glow is near. It is as if the Lantern Man not only protects the dead but also comforts the living, reminding them that someone watches over both realms. Some even claim that on certain nights, if you pause and listen closely, you can hear the soft crunch of footsteps on gravel and the faint sound of the lantern-esque wick flickering in the wind. The story of the Lantern Man is more than just a ghost tale. It is a reflection of the deep respect and reverence held for those who tend to the boundary between life and death. Jacob's spirit is said to embody the unbroken bond between caretaker and the souls he guards. His eternal patrol is a symbol of vigilance, honor, and protection. Over the years, the legend has inspired numerous efforts to preserve the cemetery and honor those who care for it. Local historians and preservation groups often invoke the Lantern Man's spirit as a guardian of their mission to protect history, memory, and respect for the departed. Despite modern advances and the fading of many old traditions, the Lantern Man's story endures. He remains a beacon in the darkness for those who understand that cemeteries are more than just resting places. They are sacred spaces where stories, souls, and spirits converge. On misty nights when the fog creeps in thick and the world seems quieter than usual, keep an eye out for the Lantern Man's glow. Whether seen with your own eyes or felt as a presence nearby, his eternal walk through the cemetery is a haunting reminder that some guardians never leave their posts. They walk between the living and the dead, carrying their lanterns to light the way and keep watch over those who have passed into the night. Near the main entrance of the Sacramento Historic City Cemetery sits a weathered wooden bench, worn smooth by decades of rain, sun, and the passage of countless visitors. To the casual observer, it may seem nothing more than a simple place to rest, a quiet spot, to pause and reflect among the gravestones. But locals know this bench by a different name, the Crying Widow's Bench. It is said to be forever marked by sorrow, haunted by the spirit of a woman whose grief was so profound it could not be laid to rest, even with her own passing. The story begins many years ago, in a time when the cemetery was a place of deep reverence and quiet ritual. A young woman, newly married, had lived a brief but intense life, marked by devotion and heartbreak. Her husband, a man beloved by the community, was laid to rest in the cemetery after a sudden illness claimed his life. Heartbroken and unable to accept her loss, the widow began visiting his grave every day. Rain or shine, she would come to the cemetery, carrying a small bouquet of wildflowers and sitting quietly on the bench near the entrance, close enough to hear the whispers of the trees and feel the presence of her lost love. Her visits became a ritual, a sacred daily journey fueled by love and longing. Over time, the townsfolk grew used to seeing her silhouette, cloaked in black, seated on the bench with tears quietly falling down her cheeks. The bench became a symbol of her undying devotion, and her sorrow touched the hearts of all who witnessed it. Many said her cries could be heard on the wind, soft sobs that mingled with the rustling leaves and the sigh of the evening breeze. When the widow herself passed away, some years later, it was said that she was buried alongside her husband. Yet, the legend holds that her spirit did not leave the bench she had made her sanctuary. Instead, her ghost remained, forever bound to the place where she waited for a reunion that never came. It is whispered that after sunset, the sound of her heartbroken weeping drifts through the air, a mournful song that lingers long after the cemetery has fallen silent. One of the most chilling tales, connected to the Crying Widow's Bench, involves a man who visited the cemetery late one autumn evening. He was a stranger to the town, drawn by curiosity and a desire to experience the stories that surrounded the old burial grounds. As darkness fell and the moon cast long shadows across the paths, he found himself seated on the very bench where the widow was said to have spent her days of grief. For a time, all was quiet, save for the distant hoot of an owl and the whisper of the wind through the trees. Then, suddenly, he felt something cold and unmistakably real, a small hand grasping his own. The touch was gentle but urgent, sending a shiver up his spine. He turned quickly, heart pounding, only to find the bench empty and the night still. But then, just as he was about to rise, a faint voice brushed his ear, a fragile whisper, barely audible yet heavy with emotion. The voice said, "Wait for me." The man left the cemetery that night changed, carrying with him the eerie memory of a presence that was neither fully here nor gone. His experience spread through the town, adding another layer to the growing tapestry of legends surrounding the crying widow's bench. Over the years, many others have shared similar stories of cold touches, of soft cries heard just beyond the edge of hearing, of fleeting glimpses of a shadowy figure seated quietly on the bench. Those who have encountered the spirit describe a profound sadness in the air, a feeling that the widow's love and loss still echo through the space she once claimed. Some say the temperature drops suddenly when you near the bench, as if the air itself mourns with her. The bench has become a place of pilgrimage for those seeking to connect with something beyond the living world, whether out of curiosity, respect, or a search for solace. Visitors often leave flowers, notes, or tokens of remembrance, hoping to honor the widow's undying devotion and perhaps bring comfort to her restless spirit. In return, many feel a strange sense of peace while near the bench, as if the widow's sorrow is met with understanding rather than despair. The crying widow's bench is more than just a physical object, it is a symbol of grief so powerful it transcends death, a reminder that some loves endure beyond the boundaries of life. Her story invites reflection on loss, hope, and the longing for reunion. It is a poignant testament to the human heart's capacity to hold on, even when all seems lost. For decades, visitors to the Sacramento Historic City Cemetery have reported a phenomenon that defies explanation: a ghostly funeral procession that appears without warning on quiet, moonlit nights. This spectral parade, often called the Vanishing Funeral Procession, has become one of the most chilling and mysterious legends tied to the cemetery's long history. Witnesses describe a procession unlike any they have ever seen in life. Emerging from the shadows near the cemetery's entrance, a line of mourners dressed in heavy Victorian attire slowly makes its way down the main path. Men wear dark frock coats and top hats, while women are clad in long black dresses and veils, their faces pale and somber. The procession moves with a solemn grace, as if honoring a profound loss, carrying an aura of sorrow that weighs heavily on anyone who happens to be nearby. At the center of the procession is an old-fashioned, horse-drawn hearse, its polished black wood gleaming faintly under the pale moonlight. The horses, tall and majestic, move with slow, deliberate steps, their hooves creating a rhythmic tap against the gravel. The hearse's wheels creak softly as it rolls forward, pulled by these ghostly beasts. Unlike any modern funeral procession, the scene feels frozen in time, echoing a Victorian era long past. Witnesses report feeling an overwhelming chill in the air as the procession passes, along with a deep, unshakable sadness that seems to seep into the bones. The mourners do not speak, their faces fixed in expressions of quiet grief. Some observers have described seeing tears glistening on the veiled faces of the women, while the men's eyes appear hollow, as though they carry the weight of unimaginable loss. One of the strangest aspects of the vanishing funeral procession is its sudden disappearance. As the procession reaches the gates of the cemetery, just as the first light of dawn begins to touch the sky, the entire group slowly fades into thin air. The mourners, the horses, even the hearse itself vanish completely, leaving behind only the soft echo of hoofbeats and the faint rustle of fabric in the wind. What makes this phenomenon even more perplexing is that no official records or newspaper archives mention a funeral matching the procession's details from recent memory. Cemetery records show no recent burials corresponding to a Victorian-era funeral, nor any event large enough to warrant such a grand procession. This absence of documentation has led many to believe that what people are witnessing is not a living event, but a spectral reenactment, a haunting replay of a tragedy lost to time. Local historians have speculated that the procession might be connected to a catastrophic event from the late 1800s or early 1900s. Perhaps a mass burial after an epidemic, a disaster, or a tragic accident that claimed many lives at once. The cemetery, being one of the oldest in Sacramento, holds countless stories of joy, sorrow, and loss, many of which have faded from collective memory. The vanishing funeral procession could be the restless echo of one such forgotten sorrow, eternally reenacting the last farewell to those who were laid to rest with dignity and mourning. Several witnesses have shared their personal experiences with the procession. One elderly man recalls coming upon the scene during a night walk years ago. He described standing motionless as the mourners passed, overwhelmed by a mixture of awe and profound sadness. He said he could feel the weight of the grief, as though it were a tangible force pressing down upon him. He tried to call out, to ask about the procession, but no sound left his lips. When the group vanished, he was left in stunned silence, unsure if he had dreamed the entire event. Another account comes from a group of teenagers who ventured into the cemetery on a dare. As they wandered the path late at night, a cold fog rolled in, and suddenly, the procession emerged from the mist. The teenagers watched in terrified fascination as the hearse and mourners passed slowly by. One girl claimed to have seen a young woman in the procession turn her head and look directly at her with eyes full of sorrow and longing. The group fled before the apparition disappeared, but carried the haunting memory with them for years afterward. Paranormal investigators have attempted to capture evidence of the vanishing funeral procession, setting up cameras and audio equipment along the main path during foggy nights. While video footage is often obscured by mist, many have recorded faint sounds, whispers, soft sobbing, and the unmistakable clip-clop of hooves that seem to come from nowhere. Some recordings even contain distant strains of somber Victorian-era funeral music, adding to the surreal atmosphere. Skeptics argue that the procession could be a trick of the light, an elaborate hoax, or a collective hallucination born of the cemetery's eerie ambience. However, the consistency of reports spanning decades, along with the vividness and emotional impact described by witnesses, makes it difficult to dismiss entirely. The vanishing funeral procession remains one of the most compelling and sorrowful ghost stories in Sacramento's lore. The procession serves as a poignant reminder of the cemetery's role as a resting place for countless souls, each with stories and histories that may never be fully known. It highlights the fragile boundary between the living and the dead, and the way grief can leave lasting imprints on the places where loved ones are laid to rest. For those who have experienced the procession, the event is often described as a deeply moving encounter, one that invites reflection on mortality, memory, and the passage of time. The mourner's silent grief speaks across the centuries, touching the hearts of the living with a timeless message about loss and remembrance. In the quiet moments after the procession fades, the cemetery seems to breathe again, as if releasing a heavy burden. The night's chill lifts, and the usual sounds of the living world gradually return, but the memory of the vanishing funeral procession lingers, an ethereal glimpse into a sorrowful past that refuses to be forgotten. Visitors who come to the cemetery with open hearts and minds are often rewarded with a sense of connection to those who walked before them. Whether or not the vanishing funeral procession is truly supernatural, its story enriches the cemetery's atmosphere and keeps the memory of forgotten lives alive. So, if you ever find yourself wandering the cemetery grounds on a foggy night, listen carefully for the faint sound of hooves on gravel and the soft murmur of mourners. You might just witness the slow, solemn procession as it moves through the mist, an echo from another time, a haunting farewell that vanishes before the dawn. Among the many souls resting in the Sacramento Historic City Cemetery lies a man whose name echoes through the shadows of local legend. The poet known for the darkness that colored both his work and his life. He is remembered as the Mad Poet, a figure whose haunting verses and tragic end left an indelible mark on the community. His grave, marked by a crumbling marble headstone etched with fading words, stands in a quiet corner of the cemetery, where twisted trees sway like mourners, and the night wind carries echoes of his sorrowful voice. The poet's real name has been lost to time, replaced by the ominous nickname given by those who knew of his story and those who later whispered it among themselves. In life, he was a man driven by fierce passion, his poetry a reflection of a turbulent soul grappling with despair, madness, and a fierce yearning for understanding. His verses were dark, often filled with vivid imagery of shadows, sorrow, and broken dreams. Though admired by some for their raw emotional power, his work unsettled others, reflecting a mind teetering on the edge of sanity. His life was as tragic as his poems. Some say he was tormented by unrequited love. Others believe he wrestled with inner demons that no medicine or sympathy could ease. In the final years of his life, the poet became increasingly reclusive, wandering the cemetery's winding paths at night. Muttering verses to himself, his figure often glimpsed beneath the pale moonlight. He died young, his passing as mysterious as the man himself, and was laid to rest among the silent stones, his headstone slowly succumbing to time and neglect. But it is in death that the mad poet's legend truly took shape. Visitors who dare to explore the cemetery after dusk often speak of a strange presence near his grave. On still nights, when the air is thick with silence and the shadows deepen, those nearby say they can hear the faint murmur of poetry carried on the breeze. These whispered verses are said to be the mad poet's restless spirit, reciting his sorrowful lines to the night. A spectral voice that haunts the grounds long after the living have gone home. The poems heard on such nights are fragments, broken and ethereal, sometimes tinged with anger and despair, other times filled with aching loneliness. They drift through the trees like a mournful song, barely audible yet impossible to ignore for those attuned to the cemetery's secrets. The words speak of heartbreak and madness, of dreams lost and pain too deep to bear, painting a vivid picture of the poet's tortured mind. One visitor, a young writer drawn to the cemetery by tales of the mad poet, recounted an encounter that changed her forever. As twilight fell, she found herself near the crumbling headstone, a cool wind stirring the fallen leaves at her feet. Suddenly, she heard the soft cadence of a voice gentle. The verses wove through the air, their beauty and despair entwined like a fragile dance. She described feeling both awe and unease, as though she were standing on the edge of two worlds, one of living grief and one of eternal unrest. The voice faded as suddenly as it had come, leaving behind a silence that seemed heavier than before. She left the cemetery that night with the poet's words echoing in her mind, a haunting reminder of the thin veil between life and death. Others have reported more unsettling experiences. A night watchman spoke of a sudden chill and the unmistakable sensation of being watched while passing near the mad poet's grave. At times, he claimed to hear the poet's voice grow louder, filled with bitter rage, as if railing against unseen tormentors or the cruelty of fate. The watchman said the air would thicken with sorrow, and he often hurried away, unwilling to linger in the presence of such profound anguish. Some witnesses have glimpsed a shadowy figure wandering among the tombstones, a solitary man wrapped in tattered clothing, his head bowed as if weighed down by sorrow. Though no clear face is ever seen, those who have encountered the figure describe a sense of immense sadness and isolation. Many believe this apparition is the mad poet himself, forever bound to the place where his pain was laid to rest but never truly healed. The poet's crumbling marble headstone bears the scars of time, cracks, spiderwebbing across its surface, moss creeping into its crevices, and inscriptions fading into near illegibility. Yet, faintly etched are words from one of his poems, a testament to his enduring legacy. Beneath this stone, a restless mind, whose verses bleed through space and time, a soul too dark, a heart confined, still speaks beyond the grave's cold rhyme. Local folklore holds that the poet's restless spirit is tethered to the cemetery by the very depth of his anguish. His poetry, an outpouring of his torment, keeps his spirit from finding peace. The whispers in the wind are seen as a call for understanding, a plea for those who hear to recognize the pain behind the words, and to remember the man beneath the madness. The Mad Poet's grave has become a place of pilgrimage for those fascinated by the supernatural and the tragic beauty of a tormented artist. Visitors often come to leave flowers, worn books of poetry, or written verses of their own, hoping to connect with the spirit or to offer a moment of peace. Some say that on certain nights, if you sit quietly by the grave, the wind will carry a whispered stanza and reply a spectral conversation across the boundary of life and death. His story serves as a somber reminder of the fine line between genius and madness, the fragility of the human mind, and the enduring power of art to express the deepest of emotions. The mad poet's voice, though faint and broken by time, continues to echo through the cemetery's shadows, a haunting melody that draws the curious, the sorrowful, and the seekers of the unknown. In the stillness of night, when the cemetery holds its breath, if you stand close to the crumbling marble and listen with an open heart, you may catch the faint murmur of verses carried on the breeze, words filled with longing, despair, and an eternal search for peace. The mad poet's spirit lives on, his poetry a timeless testament to a soul that refuses to be silenced, whispering across the years, from beyond the grave, in the quiet expanse of the Sacramento Historic City Cemetery, among weathered headstones and ancient trees, lies the grave of a man whose life was devoted to a craft, both delicate and enchanting, the art of doll making. Henry Caldwell was a master artisan during the early 1900s, renowned throughout Sacramento for creating porcelain dolls so lifelike and detailed that they seemed almost magical. His creations were treasured possessions in many homes, beloved by children and collectors alike. Yet, behind the charm of his dolls and the beauty of his work, there exists a mysterious tale, one that has grown into a legend, whispered among those who visit his grave. Henry Caldwell was known not just for his talent, but for the love and care he poured into each doll he made. He was a quiet, solitary man, often found in his workshop, carefully sculpting tiny hands or painting delicate features on porcelain faces. To Henry, each doll was more than just a toy. They were companions, little vessels of comfort and imagination for the children who would one day hold them. His dolls became famous for their almost lifelike expressions and intricate clothing, making his workshop a place of wonder. Despite his skill and success, Henry's personal life was marked by loneliness. He never married, and there were rumors that he was haunted by memories of a lost child or a sorrowful past that he never spoke of. His dolls were said to be his family, his way of filling a void he could never quite escape. When Henry passed away in the 1920s, the community mourned the loss of a beloved craftsman, but the strange happenings at his grave would soon turn his memory into something far more enigmatic. Visitors to Henry Caldwell's grave often share uncanny experiences. Many report seeing, sitting atop his weathered tombstone, a small porcelain doll, one that none of the living seem to have placed there. The doll is described as delicate and finely crafted, dressed in period clothing that echoes the style of the early 20th century. It is often positioned carefully, as if waiting or watching. But just as suddenly as it appears, the doll mysteriously vanishes without a trace, leaving behind only a whisper of its presence. Caretakers of the cemetery have tried to explain the phenomenon as pranks or the work of children playing tricks after dark. However, the consistency of the reports, along with the reverence visitors show when approaching the grave, suggests something far more haunting than mere mischief. The doll's appearances happen at odd hours, often late at night or in the early morning mist times, when the veil between worlds is said to be thinnest. Even more unsettling are the sounds reported near the dollmaker's grave. On several occasions, visitors have heard faint, childlike giggles drifting softly through the air, sounds that evoke innocence and playfulness, yet seem oddly out of place amid the stillness of the cemetery. Others have heard the gentle patter of small footsteps on gravel or grass, as if children were running and playing just beyond sight. When these sounds are heard, those present often feel a chill or sudden drop in temperature, a coldness that seems to accompany the invisible presence. One particularly memorable account comes from a night watchman who spent many evenings patrolling the cemetery grounds. He told of a night when, while passing near Caldwell's grave, he heard the unmistakable clink of porcelain on stone. Looking up, he was startled to see a small doll resting on the tombstone under the moonlight's glow. As he reached out cautiously, the doll vanished into thin air, leaving the watchman breathless and deeply unsettled. Soon after, he heard the faintest sound of laughter, soft, joyful, and haunting all at once, echoing in the cool night breeze. Some believe the doll-maker's spirit lingers still, bound to the cemetery by the love he had for his craft and the sorrow of his solitude. His restless ghost is thought to play among the dolls he created, perhaps seeking the companionship he lacked in life. The porcelain doll that appears and disappears is said to be a manifestation of this spirit, a playful but poignant reminder that the doll-maker never truly left his creations behind. Visitors who come to pay their respects often leave small offerings near the grave, a fresh flower, a tiny doll, or a handwritten note, tokens meant to honor Henry Caldwell and soothe his wandering soul. These gestures are met with a sense of quiet peace, as if the spirit acknowledges the kindness and lingers longer in moments of connection. The grave of the doll-maker has become a place of fascination and gentle fear, a symbol of innocence caught between worlds. It reminds those who hear the stories that even in death, the creations we cherish can hold echoes of the lives and hearts behind them. The mystery of the porcelain doll's appearances, the giggles carried on the wind, and the faint footsteps are a haunting melody of memory and longing. On certain nights, when the moon is full and the cemetery is bathed in silver light, those who visit Caldwell's grave report, feeling a soft presence, a playful spirit reaching out through the ages. If you listen carefully, you might catch the whisper of a child's laugh, or see a flicker of porcelain reflected in the shadows. The doll-maker's story lives on, a timeless tale of artistry, loneliness, and a love that transcends the boundaries between life and death. At the far edge of the Sacramento Historic City Cemetery, where the gravestones give way to wild grass and twisted roots, there stands a small grove of weeping willow trees. Their long, slender branches cascade down like delicate curtains, swaying softly in a breeze that often seems not to exist. This cluster of willows, known locally as the Willow Grove, has long been a place of quiet mystery and whispered stories, woven deeply into the fabric of the cemetery's haunting lore. The willows themselves are striking, ancient, gnarled trunks rising from the earth, their branches trailing like mournful fingers brushing the ground. Many visitors find the grove both beautiful and unsettling, a natural sanctuary that seems to breathe with its own life. Yet, beneath the graceful sway of the branches, lurks a shadow, one that is spoken of in hushed tones and guarded secrets. For generations, locals have shared stories of a dark figure seen moving beneath the willow canopy, mostly appearing just after dusk, when the light fades and the world feels suspended between day and night. This shadow, indistinct yet unmistakably human in form, glides silently beneath the trees, its presence felt more often than fully seen. Those who have encountered it describe a chilling drop in temperature the moment they step near the grove, as if the air itself is weighed down by sorrow. Visitors approaching the Willow Grove often report the eerie sensation of being watched, though no eyes meet theirs. The feeling is heavy and penetrating, as though invisible gazes pierce through the darkness, measuring and mourning. Some have stopped in their tracks, overcome by an inexplicable dread that roots them to the spot, while others hasten away, their skin prickling with cold and their hearts pounding. The shadow is believed to be the restless spirit of a grief-stricken mother, a woman who once called the surrounding land home. Legend holds that she lost her child under tragic circumstances many years ago. Some say to illness, others whisper of an accident. Her grief was so profound that she wandered into the cemetery, seeking solace among the trees. But peace eluded her, and her spirit became bound to the Willow Grove, forever cloaked in sorrow and yearning. According to the tale, the mother is never seen in clear detail. Instead, she appears as a shifting, dark silhouette, her form blurred and blending with the shadows of the willow branches. Her presence is marked by a heavy stillness, broken only by the soft rustling of leaves, as if the trees themselves are mourning with her. Those who have looked closer claim to have glimpsed the faint outline of a woman, sometimes kneeling or reaching out, her face hidden by long hair or veiled in darkness. One of the most compelling stories comes from a woman named Margaret, a frequent visitor to the cemetery, who was drawn to the willow grove by its quiet beauty. One evening, as twilight descended, Margaret ventured beneath the willows, feeling an inexplicable pull toward the heart of the grove. As she stepped beneath the hanging branches, the air grew noticeably colder, and a sense of profound sadness washed over her. Suddenly, Margaret felt the unmistakable sensation of being watched. Turning slowly, she caught sight of the shadowy and indistinct figure standing just beyond the reach of the moonlight, filtering through the leaves. The shadow moved gracefully, almost mournfully, and though Margaret saw no face, she felt the weight of loss and despair radiating from it. Frozen by a mix of fear and compassion, Margaret whispered a quiet prayer, and to her surprise, the shadow seemed to respond, gliding closer, but never fully revealing itself. The branches trembled, the wind whispered through the leaves. And for a brief moment, Margaret sensed an unspoken connection, a shared understanding of grief. Others have reported hearing soft sobbing or the gentle rustle of fabric near the willow grove on nights when the cemetery is otherwise silent. Some visitors have felt a fleeting touch, as though the spirit reaches out to comfort or be comforted. These experiences leave a lingering impression, a poignant reminder that some wounds run so deep that they transcend death. The willow grove is a place where nature and spirit intertwine, where the sorrow of a mother echoes through the rustling leaves, and the shadow beneath the willows waits in eternal vigil. It is a haunting testament to love and loss, a reminder that grief can bind souls beyond the veil of life. Caretakers of the cemetery have come to respect the grove, speaking softly of the shadow and advising visitors to tread lightly and with reverence. They tell newcomers that the willow trees are more than just trees. They are guardians of a sorrowful secret, their branches a shelter for a spirit who will never leave. Some locals say that if you visit the willow grove on certain nights, you might glimpse the shadow moving among the branches or hear the faintest whisper of a lullaby carried on the wind. The melody is said to be the mother's song, a mournful tune sung to a child long gone but never forgotten. The story of the shadow in the willow grove has become a part of Sacramento's rich tapestry of ghostly legends, a tale that speaks to the enduring power of love and the heartache of loss. It reminds us that some spirits remain tethered to this world by the weight of their emotions, finding no rest until they are heard, understood, and remembered. In the quiet hours after dusk, when the cemetery is bathed in silver moonlight and the world feels hushed, the willow grove stands as a silent witness. Beneath its swaying branches, the shadow waits, an eternal guardian of grief, cloaked in sorrow, forever watching and yearning for a reunion that may never come. Near the back of the Sacramento Historic City Cemetery lies a somber and overlooked section, known simply as the prisoner's plot. This area holds the graves of inmates and prisoners from the earliest days of Sacramento as historymen and women whose lives were marked by hardship, crime, and often brutal justice. The graves here are unadorned, many marked only by simple stones or wooden markers, a stark reminder of lives lived on society's margins and ended in obscurity. Yet, it is said that on certain nights, this forgotten corner of the cemetery comes alive with an eerie and unsettling presence. Local lore speaks of the rattling chains, an unearthly sound that drifts through the air when darkness falls and the moon hangs low in the sky. Passers-by near the prisoner's plot report hearing the clinking and dragging of metal chains, a chilling noise that grows louder and more urgent, as if a restless spirit is struggling to break free from its bonds. The sound is hollow and metallic, echoing against the silent gravestones and sending shivers down the spines of those who hear it. The origin of these ghostly chains is said to be the spirit of a prisoner who died long ago, condemned and bound in life and death alike. Stories passed down through generations speak of a man named Samuel Turner, a convict from the mid-1800s who was imprisoned in Sacramento's early jail. Samuel was known for his fierce spirit and desperate attempts to escape captivity, but after a failed breakout, He was reportedly shackled in heavy iron chains as punishment. According to legend, Samuel died under mysterious circumstances shortly after his capture, some say, from illness brought on by the harsh conditions. Others whisper of a violent death. His body was buried in the prisoner's plot, his final resting place marked by a weathered stone, almost forgotten by time. But the chains that once bound him in life, it seems, were never truly removed in death. Witnesses described the rattling chains as a spectral echo of Samuel's relentless desire for freedom, a haunting reminder of the cruelty he endured. On moonlit nights, those brave or perhaps foolish enough to venture near the prisoner's plot have claimed to see a ghostly figure pacing restlessly beneath the pale light. The apparition is described as a man clad in tattered, worn clothes, his wrists bound by shimmering iron chains that clatter with every step. The figure moves with a restless energy, pacing back and forth along the rows of graves as if searching for a way out of his eternal prison. His face is often obscured by shadows, but his presence exudes a mixture of anger, sorrow, and desperation. Many who have glimpsed a prisoner say his eyes seem filled with a burning need for justice and release. A soul trapped between the world of the living and the dead. One chilling account comes from a local historian who visited the cemetery late one night while researching the prisoner's plot. As he walked among the graves, the historian heard the unmistakable sound of chains dragging on the ground, sharp and echoing in the still air. He stopped, heart pounding, and saw a shadowy figure emerge from the darkness. The apparition moved with slow, deliberate steps, the chains clinking and rattling with each movement. The historian described feeling a wave of cold wash over him as the prisoner's gaze seemed to lock onto his own. A silent plea or warning passed between them. The figure vanished as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving only the fading sound of chains and a profound sense of unease behind. Other visitors have reported similar experiences. The sudden sound of metal scraping against stone, cold gusts of wind that seem to come from nowhere, and the sensation of being watched by an unseen presence. Some have even felt phantom chains brushing against their skin or heard the anguished whispers of a man pleading for release. The prisoner's plot is not only a place of rest for those who suffered under harsh justice, but also a site where the past's pain and injustice seem to linger. The rattling chains are seen as a symbol of the cruelty inflicted upon prisoners like Samuel Turnerman, bound by more than just metal, shackled by the weight of history and suffering. Caretakers of the cemetery acknowledge the stories but often advise visitors to approach the prisoner's plot with respect and caution. The area is said to hold a heavy energy, a place where the boundary between the living and the dead feels thin. Those who honor the graves with quiet reverence and kindness may find the presence less oppressive, while those who come seeking thrills or disrespect the site risk awakening the prisoner's restless spirit. Local folklore warns that the prisoner's ghost is not malevolent in a traditional sense, but is driven by a deep, aching sorrow and a longing for freedom that was denied in life and death. The rattling chains are not merely a haunting sound, they are a cry for justice. A spectral demand that the past be acknowledged and the suffering remembered. Over time, the legend of the rattling chains has become a fixture of Sacramento's haunted history, a story passed on from generation to generation. It serves as a reminder of the human cost of punishment and the shadows that linger long after the final verdict is given. The prisoner's chains echo across the centuries, a chilling sound that calls out to the living to remember those forgotten by time. As night deepens and the cemetery falls silent, the prisoner's plot waits beneath the moon's cold gaze. The chains rattle once more, breaking the stillness with their metallic song. Somewhere in the darkness, the restless prisoner paces, trapped between worlds, bound by iron and sorrow, his spirit forever seeking release that may never come. Amid the solemn rows of gravestones and towering monuments in the Sacramento Historic City Cemetery stands an old mausoleum, its stone facade weathered by time and draped in creeping ivy. Atop this mausoleum perches a gargoyle, grotesque stone creature carved with exaggerated features, wings folded tight against its hunched back, claws gripping the ledge. and eyes that seem to pierce the darkness, known to locals simply as the gargoyle of the cemetery. This statue is infamous not only for its eerie appearance, but for the strange phenomena reported by those who visit after dusk. Visitors speak in hushed tones about the gargoyle's unsettling presence, saying that its eyes seem unnervingly lifelike. By day, the statue is a mere relic of Gothic artistry, its chipped stone rough and cold under the sun. But as twilight descends and shadows lengthen, many swear that the gargoyle's eyes glow faintly red, casting a sinister light that flickers like distant embers. Some claim the eyes follow their every movement, tracking them with an intelligence that no mere sculpture should possess. The sensation of being watched beneath the gargoyle's gaze is pervasive and deeply unnerving. Visitors who linger near the mausoleum speak of an oppressive atmosphere, as though invisible eyes are fixed upon them with judgment or warning. This sensation intensifies after dark, when the cemetery is shrouded in silence and the moon casts eerie shadows. Many recount the overwhelming urge to break eye contact, fearing what might happen if they stare too long into those glowing eyes. Legend holds that the gargoyle is no ordinary statue but a cursed sentinel, placed to guard a terrible secret buried deep beneath the mausoleum. The story is woven into the cemetery's oldest folklore, tale of betrayal, death, and a dark power that defies rest. According to the legend, the mausoleum was built in the late 1800s for a wealthy family whose patriarch was rumored to have been involved in sinister dealings. Some say he dabbled in forbidden rituals, seeking to protect his fortune and legacy at any cost. When he died under mysterious circumstances, rumors spread that he had hidden something far more valuable beneath the family tomb, secret, so dangerous that it could bring ruin to anyone who uncovered it. To protect this secret, it is said, the family commissioned the gargoyle statue as a guardian, but the gargoyle was no ordinary carving. It was believed to be imbued with a curse, a binding spirit tasked with warding off those who would disturb the crypt. Over time, stories grew that the gargoyle's eyes held a supernatural power, glowing to warn intruders and watching over the tomb to prevent the secret from ever being revealed. Visitors who dared to venture close to the mausoleum have shared chilling accounts of encounters with the gargoyle's watchful gaze. One such story comes from a cemetery volunteer who was working late one autumn evening. As she arranged flowers near the mausoleum, she felt an icy chill brush across her neck. Looking up, she caught sight of the gargoyle's eyes flickering with a deep red glow. Despite the cold creeping through her veins, she found herself unable to look away, mesmerized and terrified all at once. The volunteer later described the experience as a silent warning, as if the statue was telling her to leave before the curse was unleashed. She hurried away, feeling the weight of unseen eyes tracking her every step. When she returned during the day, the gargoyle's eyes were dull stone once more, but the memory of that night lingered like a shadow in her mind. Others who have visited the mausoleum report hearing strange sounds, low growls, or whispered voices that seem to emanate from the gargoyle itself or from the crypt below. Some say the ground near the tomb feels unnaturally cold, a chill that seeps into the bones and refuses to fade, and several people claim that, on moonless nights, the gargoyle's eyes blaze with an intense red light, illuminating the darkness with an unholy glow. The legend warns that those who stare too long into the gargoyle's eyes risk awakening the curse it guards. Tales circulate of visitors who have been plagued by nightmares, sudden misfortunes, or strange illnesses after spending too much time under the statue's gaze. Some believe the gargoyle can trap a soul, binding it to the cemetery as eternal punishment for those who pry too deeply into the secrets. Beneath the mausoleum, despite these warnings, the gargoyle of the cemetery remains a magnetic presence, drawing the curious, the brave, and the foolhardy alike. Many come seeking proof of the supernatural, hoping to glimpse the glowing eyes or feel the chilling aura firsthand. The statue has become a symbol of mystery and dread, a reminder that some secrets are best left buried. Caretakers of the cemetery maintain a respectful distance from the mausoleum, often cautioning visitors about the gargoyle's reputation. They speak softly of the statue as more than mere stone, an ancient guardian standing watch over a dark past. They urge visitors not to challenge the gaze or linger too long, for the consequences are unknown and the curse unbroken. The story of the gargoyle also serves as a metaphor, a chilling embodiment of watchfulness and consequence. It reminds us that the past holds shadows we may never fully understand, and that some doors are locked for a reason. The glowing eyes of the gargoyle are a warning etched in stone. Some secrets carry a price too high to pay. As night falls over the Sacramento Historic City Cemetery, the gargoyle remains perched atop its ancient mausoleum, eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. Its silent vigil continues, watching, waiting, and guarding whatever lies beneath. Those who pass by feel the weight of its gaze, a reminder that in the stillness of the night, unseen forces are watching, and some eyes never close. Near a prominent family crypt in the heart of the Sacramento Historic City Cemetery lies a mystery that has captivated visitors and staff alike for decades, a single red rose that appears on the ground outside the crypt. No matter the season or the weather, this rose is unlike any other flower in the cemetery. It is always fresh, vibrant, and untouched by the elements, a stark contrast to the passing time and decay that surround it. The crypt itself belongs to the Langley family, an old Sacramento lineage known for their wealth and influence in the city's early days. Their crypt is grand and imposing, built from polished granite and adorned with intricate carvings that tell stories of love, loss, and legacy. While the Langley name has faded from common memory, the mysterious red rose remains a constant presence, sparking curiosity and speculation. Cemetery staff have tried to remove the rose countless times. They sweep it away during routine cleanings, only to find it replaced within hours or, sometimes by the very next morning. The caretakers have even set up surveillance cameras to catch whoever might be leaving the rose, hoping to solve the mystery. Yet, no human has ever been caught on film placing the flower there. This strange and persistent occurrence has led many to believe that the rose is the work of a devoted spirit, a ghost who refuses to leave their loved one's side even in death. According to local legend, the rose is left by Elizabeth Langley, the devoted wife of Jonathan Langley, who rests inside the crypt. Elizabeth and Jonathan's story is one of deep love and tragic loss, and it is said that Elizabeth's spirit continues to honor their bond by placing the rose outside his final resting place. Elizabeth's life was marked by both joy and heartbreak. She and Jonathan were deeply in love, a couple whose affection was admired by all who knew them. Their marriage was a partnership built on loyalty and tenderness, but their happiness was cut short when Elizabeth died unexpectedly young, only months after Jonathan's passing. Some say she could not bear to live without him, and that her spirit has remained bound to the crypt, eternally faithful. Visitors to the cemetery, especially those who come late at night, often report strange experiences near the Langley crypt. One of the most commonly shared phenomena is the sudden appearance of the scent of fresh roses, sweet, intoxicating, and unmistakable even when no flowers are visible anywhere nearby. The fragrance seems to drift on the air, lingering long after the visitor has left the area. The smell of roses in the quiet darkness has a haunting quality, both beautiful and melancholic. For many, it serves as a subtle reminder that love can transcend the boundaries of life and death. Some say the scent is Elizabeth's way of reaching out, a tender signal that her love endures beyond the grave. One woman named Sarah shared her encounter with the vanishing rose during a late autumn visit. Walking through the cemetery under a sky filled with stars, Sarah felt drawn to the Langley crypt by an inexplicable feeling. As she approached, she saw the single red rose lying perfectly on the cold granite. The flower was untouched by the crisp air and fallen leaves, its petals vibrant and velvety. As Sarah stood there, the air around her filled with the unmistakable scent of fresh roses. Even though no other flowers were in sight, she bent down and gently touched the rose, feeling an overwhelming wave of peace mixed with sadness wash over her. In that quiet moment, she imagined Elizabeth's spirit nearby, honoring a love that would never fade. Sarah left the cemetery that night with the scent of roses still lingering on her clothes, a fragrant memory of a love story that defied time. Others have told of catching glimpses of a figure near the crypt, a woman, dressed in white, sometimes seen holding a red rose, silently watching over the resting place. These sightings are brief and fleeting, often dismissed as tricks of the light or imagination, yet they add to the growing lore surrounding the vanishing rose. The story of the vanishing rose has become more than just a ghost tale. It is a symbol of unwavering devotion, a reminder that the bonds forged in life can linger long after death. The rose itself, always fresh and vibrant, stands as a testament to love's persistence, even in the face of loss and the passage of time. Caretakers of the cemetery have come to respect the mystery, often leaving the rose undisturbed out of reverence for the unknown force behind it. They recognize that some mysteries are sacred and that the rose's presence brings comfort and meaning to those who encounter it. Locals tell the tale of the vanishing rose to visitors and children, passing it down through generations as a story of love and remembrance. It serves as a gentle reminder that cemeteries are not just places of sorrow, but also of enduring memory and connection. As night falls over the Sacramento Historic City Cemetery, and the moon casts silver light on cold stone, the vanishing rose lies patiently outside the Langley crypt, a silent emblem of love that refuses to wither, a fragrant echo of a heart that beats beyond the grave. At the heart of the Sacramento Historic City Cemetery stands the old chapel, once a place of solemn prayer and sacred ceremonies, now a crumbling relic overtaken by time. The chapel's stone walls, cracked and weathered, lean against the sky, and shattered windows gape like hollow eyes. Despite its decay, the chapel remains a powerful presence within the cemetery, shrouded in mystery and whispered tales of the supernatural. Among the many ghost stories told about the cemetery, none is as haunting or as beautiful as the legend of the singing spirit of the chapel. It is said that, on quiet nights, when the wind is still and the world is wrapped in darkness, a faint melody drifts through the broken windows, carried softly on the night air. This ethereal singing, at once sorrowful and serene, is believed to belong to a young choir member who died tragically decades ago. The story dates back to the mid-20th century, when the chapel was still in use and its choir was a cherished part of the community. The choir rehearsed regularly in the small, stone building, filling the sacred space with harmonious voices and uplifting hymns. Among the members was a young woman named Clara, whose clear, sweet soprano voice was said to be the soul of the choir. Clara's talent was admired by all, and her presence brought light to the chapel's otherwise somber atmosphere. Tragedy struck one fateful evening during a rehearsal. The details vary depending on who tells the story. Some say Clara slipped and fell from the chapel's narrow balcony. Others claim she was struck by a sudden illness or fainted and struck her head. Regardless of the cause, Clara's life was cut short in that very chapel, leaving the choir and the entire community devastated. Following her untimely death, the chapel's choir disbanded, and the building fell into neglect. Over the years, the chapel's roof collapsed, and the once vibrant place of worship became a ruin, a silent witness to memories and grief. Yet, those who have visited the chapel late at night insist that Clara's voice lives on, a haunting echo of a life interrupted. Visitors who approach the chapel after dark describe an almost tangible stillness that envelops the ruins, a calmness that is both inviting and unsettling. As they step closer, many report hearing the faintest strains of a melody, fragile and distant at first, like a whisper carried on the wind. The song is unmistakably human, a pure soprano voice weaving through the silence with haunting beauty. The melody often grows louder, as if the spirit is drawing near, filling the broken chapel with sound once more. Yet just as suddenly, the singing stops, cut off mid-note, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. This sudden absence leaves many with the feeling that the singer is trapped, caught forever in a moment between worlds, unable to complete her song or find peace. One visitor, a young woman named Emily, shared her experience visiting the chapel on a chilly autumn night. Drawn by curiosity and the tales she had heard, Emily wandered into the ruins just as the sun dipped below the horizon. As she explored the collapsed walls and scattered stones, a soft voice began to sing. The melody was hauntingly beautiful, echoing through the open spaces where the chapel's roof once stood. Emily described the feeling as surreal, both calming and heartbreaking. She followed the voice to the remains of the balcony, where she imagined Clara once stood, singing her heart out to an audience now long gone. Suddenly, the singing stopped. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with unspoken sorrow. Emily felt a chill run down her spine, as if the spirit was pleading silently for release. Others recount similar encounters, moments when the chapel seems to come alive with music, only to be silenced by an unseen force. Some say the singing is a lament, a song of loss and longing that Clara's spirit sings to the living in hopes of being heard. Others believe it is a call for comfort, a reminder that even in death, the bonds of love and community persist. Caretakers and locals often caution visitors about the chapel, warning them to respect the sacred ground and the spirit that lingers there. They say that Chapel's ruins are not just a place of history, but a threshold where the living and the departed briefly meet through song. The story of the singing spirit of the chapel has inspired musicians, writers, and ghost hunters alike, all drawn by the mystery of a voice that defies silence. It serves as a poignant reminder that some souls are bound to their passions, their voices echoing long after their bodies have gone. In the stillness of the night, when the cemetery is wrapped in darkness and the world seems to hold its breath, the ruins of the chapel whisper with the fragile notes of a song. Clara's spirit sings on, a beautiful, haunting melody that touches the hearts of those who listen, a voice lost in time, yet never truly gone. Along the winding main road of the Sacramento Historic City Cemetery, a mysterious and haunting presence has been reported for generations, a ghostly horse and carriage that appears without warning, then vanishes just as suddenly. This spectral carriage is said to glide silently through the fog-shrouded paths of the cemetery, a remnant of a sorrowful past, endlessly replaying its final journey. The story of the ghostly horse and carriage is deeply rooted in local lore. According to accounts passed down through the years, the carriage belonged to a prominent family in Sacramento during the late 19th century. The family was struck by tragedy when their beloved patriarch died unexpectedly, and the community gathered to mourn. On the day of the funeral, a grand horse-drawn carriage was brought to carry the grieving family from their home to the cemetery. The carriage, ornate and somber, was drawn by two black horses, their coats gleaming even in the gloomy light of the overcast day. The driver, dressed in traditional 19th century mourning attire, a dark suit, tall hat, and gloves, guided the horses with solemn dignity. Witnesses at the time recall the mourners' heavy hearts as the carriage slowly made its way through the city streets, past familiar landmarks and down the road that led to the cemetery. The procession was marked by silence, broken only by the soft clip-clop of hooves on cobblestone and the occasional murmur of grieving voices. But the tragedy did not end with the burial. Soon after the funeral, strange sightings began to circulate. Locals claimed that the horse and carriage never truly left the cemetery grounds. Instead, it appeared repeatedly along the main road, retracing the mournful journey again and again, as if caught in a timeless loop. Over the decades, many have reported seeing the ghostly carriage gliding silently through the mist. On some occasions, the horses' hooves strike the ground with a hollow sound, their outlines faint but unmistakable against the fog. The carriage itself is described as an elegant, black carriage, with intricate details still visible despite its ghostly nature. Perhaps most chilling is the figure of the driver, who is sometimes seen sitting stiffly on the carriage seat, wearing his old-fashioned mourning clothes. Witnesses often recount how the driver will nod solemnly to onlookers, a gesture of respect or farewell before the entire apparition fades away like smoke in the breeze. One evening, a group of visitors who had come to explore the cemetery late at night reported an encounter that left them both awestruck and unnerved. Walking along the main road, they suddenly heard the unmistakable sound of hooves approaching. From the swirling fog emerged the silhouette of the horse and carriage, the spectral horses moving gracefully as if led by invisible reins. The carriage's lanterns cast a faint, eerie glow, illuminating the mist as it passed. The driver, cloaked in his somber attire, lifted his hand in a slow, deliberate nod before the entire scene dissolved into the night air. The group stood frozen, feeling the weight of grief and reverence that seemed to linger with the ghostly procession. Locals believe that this haunting is a manifestation of unresolved sorrow, a family's grief so profound that it has imprinted itself onto the very ground. The ghostly carriage is thought to endlessly replay its final journey, trapped between the world of the living and the dead, unable to move on until the mourning is complete. The phenomenon has become a part of the cemetery's identity, drawing ghost hunters, curious visitors, and storytellers eager to witness the mysterious apparition. Each sighting adds to the lore, creating a tapestry of tales woven with sadness, respect, and the supernatural. Caretakers of the cemetery often caution visitors to treat the site with respect, reminding them that the horse and carriage represent more than a ghost story. They are a symbol of love, loss, and the human desire to remember those who have passed. The ghostly horse and carriage stand as a poignant reminder that some souls are bound not by physical chains, but by the weight of memory and mourning. Their nightly procession through the misty paths of the cemetery is a timeless tribute to a family's love and the enduring pain of farewell. As darkness falls and the fog thickens along the cemetery's main road, the haunting sound of hooves may be heard once more, signaling the arrival of the ghostly carriage. Its lanterns flicker in the gloom, and the driver's nod lingers in the air, a silent farewell to the living, and an eternal journey for the departed. Near the entrance of the Sacramento Historic City Cemetery, long ago, there stood a bell tower, a tall, sturdy structure that once watched over the grounds like a silent guardian. Its aged wooden frame creaked with the wind, and its iron bell was known to toll for many important occasions: funerals, memorials, and the passing of time itself. But decades ago, the bell tower was dismantled, its stones and timbers removed, leaving behind only the memory of its presence and the faint outline where it once stood. Yet, even though the bell tower no longer exists, something strange and unsettling remains. On certain nights, particularly when the moon is hidden behind thick clouds and a chill fills the air, nearby residents and late-night wanderers swear they hear the clear, resonant ringing of a bell echoing through the quiet streets and into the cemetery grounds. The sound is unmistakable, a deep, sonorous toll that carries far beyond where any physical bell could be heard. It rings out with a haunting clarity, each strike resonating long after it fades, like a voice calling through the darkness. This phenomenon has puzzled locals and paranormal enthusiasts for years, leading to whispered theories and cautious speculation. Paranormal investigators who have explored the cemetery suggest that the bell tolls on its own, independent of human hands, as if summoned by some unseen force. Some believe the bell serves as a warning, a spectral signal that something grave or tragic is about to occur. Others think it is a call, a summons for spirits to gather within the cemetery's ancient walls. A supernatural congregation beckoned by the bell's mournful peal. The history of the bell tower adds to the mystery. Built in the late 1800s, it was an integral part of the cemetery, used to mark the passage of funerals and memorial services. It was said that when the bell tolled, the sound could be heard for miles, a solemn reminder of mortality and the fleeting nature of life. But the bell tower fell into disrepair during the mid-20th century. After years of storms and neglect, the decision was made to dismantle it, fearing the old structure might collapse. The bell itself was removed, taken to storage, and eventually lost to history. The tower's stones were scattered, and the space where it stood was left empty, yet the bell's voice was never silenced. Stories of the bell ringing without explanation have been recorded for decades. One longtime resident, Mrs. Thompson, recalls a night in the 1970s when she heard the bell toll, just as she was putting her children to bed. The sound was so clear and real that she rushed outside, expecting to see the bell tower. But there was nothing but darkness and the silent cemetery beyond. She described the experience as both eerie and mournful, a sound that seemed to carry sorrow and urgency. Mrs. Thompson later learned that, on that very night, a tragic accident had occurred nearby, and many wondered if the bell had sounded as a warning. Since then, reports have surfaced sporadically. People walking near the cemetery late at night hear the bells toll, their footsteps pausing as the ringing cuts through the stillness. Others awake from dreams to the sound of the bell, a signal that feels both ancient and inexplicably personal. Paranormal investigators who have studied the cemetery use sensitive equipment to monitor the area on nights when the bell is heard. They report strange electromagnetic readings, sudden drops in temperature, and unexplained shadows moving near the old bell tower site. Audio recordings sometimes capture the faint echoes of the bell's toll, even though no physical bell is present. One investigation team set up cameras and sound recorders near the bell tower's former location. During a night when the bell had been reported to ring frequently, in the early hours, their devices captured the deep ringing sound, as well as fleeting images of shadowy figures moving near the ground, figures that vanished when approached. Theories abound about the bell's supernatural significance. Some believe the bell is tied to the spirits of those buried within the cemetery, acting as a conduit between the living world and the afterlife. The tolling could be a way for restless souls to communicate, or a ritualistic call to gather and remember. Others suggest that the bell serves as a guardian's warning, tolling in response to events that could threaten the peace of the cemetery or the surrounding community. The timing of the bell's tolls sometimes coincides with natural disasters, accidents, or even personal tragedies nearby, leading many to regard the sound as a spectral alert. Skeptics argue that the bell tolls might be explained by natural sounds, old pipes, distant church bells, or the echo of passing trains. But those who have heard the bell firsthand insist that its tone and resonance cannot be mistaken or dismissed so easily. It is a sound that carries weight and meaning far beyond the ordinary. The bell's toll has also woven itself into local culture and storytelling. It is featured in ghost tours and history walks, a tale told around campfires and passed down through generations. For many, the bell's mysterious ringing adds to the cemetery's aura, a reminder that some things refuse to be forgotten, and some voices still call out from beyond the veil. Caretakers of the cemetery often speak quietly about the bell, urging visitors to respect the sacred space and the unseen forces that linger there. They say the bell tolls as a reminder of life's fragility, a summons to remember those who have passed and to honor the stories that remain etched in stone. As night deepens and the wind stirs the trees near the cemetery entrance, the ghostly bell sometimes sounds again, a deep, mournful toll that cuts through the darkness. Its voice carries across the silent grounds, reaching into the hearts of those who listen. The cemetery bell that rings itself is more than a sound. It is a connection, a warning, and a call to remembrance. It speaks of loss and legacy, of memories that echo beyond time, and of a presence that watches over the resting place of the departed. In the oldest section of the Sacramento Historic City Cemetery lies a grave shrouded in mystery and sorrow, the resting place of a doctor whose life ended in disgrace, and whose spirit is said to remain restless to this day. Known to locals simply as the Restless Doctor, his story is one marked by tragedy, accusations, and an unsettled legacy that continues to haunt those who venture near his grave. The doctor in question was Dr. Henry Caldwell, a prominent physician in Sacramento during the late 19th century, once respected for his dedication and skill. Caldwell's reputation was shattered after a series of unfortunate medical outcomes led to accusations of malpractice. Rumors swirled that he had made fatal mistakes in treating several patients, and the public's trust in him rapidly dissolved. Despite attempts to clear his name, Dr. Caldwell's professional and personal life spiraled downward. Friends and colleagues distanced themselves, and patients sought care elsewhere. The stress and stigma weighed heavily on him. His last days were marked by isolation and despair, and when he died, the circumstances of his passing were clouded in secrecy. Dr. Caldwell was buried in an unassuming grave near the cemetery's oldest plot, his name etched on a modest headstone worn by time. But his story did not end with his death. Over the years, visitors to his grave have reported a series of strange and unsettling experiences, fueling the legend of the restless doctor's lingering spirit. One of the most commonly reported phenomena is a sudden, inexplicable wave of nausea or dizziness that washes over visitors as they approach the grave. Some say it feels like a pressure in the chest or a disorienting fog that clouds the mind. Those sensitive to such sensations often describe the experience as overwhelming, compelling them to leave the area quickly, beyond the physical sensations. Many who have spent time near the grave claim to witness ghostly figures appearing in the shadows. These apparitions often take the form of patients, men, women, and children who seem to wander aimlessly among the tombstones, as if searching for answers or relief. The figures are described as pale and translucent, their expressions a mix of confusion, pain, and longing. A few witnesses have shared chilling accounts of hearing faint whispers and anguished murmurs, voices barely audible yet filled with sorrow and frustration. Some believe these are the spirits of those who suffered under Dr. Caldwell's care. Trapped in the cemetery, with unresolved grievances and unanswered questions. One visitor, a local historian named Mark, recounted his own eerie encounter while researching the cemetery's oldest graves. Mark had heard the stories of the restless doctor and decided to visit the site after dusk, hoping to better understand the legend. As he approached the grave, Mark felt the familiar wave of nausea and a sudden chill that seemed to seep into his bones. The air grew thick and heavy, and shadows lengthened unnaturally. Just beyond the grave, he saw movement, a faint figure, drifting slowly between the stones, its outline blurred and wavering. Mark described the figure as a woman, her eyes wide with a silent plea. She moved without direction, her form flickering like a candle flame in the breeze. Suddenly, he heard a low whisper, barely audible. "Help me, please." Startled, Mark stepped back, and the figure vanished. The oppressive sensation lifted, but the memory of the encounter stayed with him long after he left the cemetery. Others have reported similar experiences, some more intense and terrifying. A woman who visited the grave with her family once saw multiple shadowy figures clustered near the tombstones, their ghostly forms reaching out as if seeking comfort or justice. Her young son later told her he had seen a man in a long coat standing silently beside the grave, a man whose presence felt both heavy and sorrowful. The legend of the restless doctor has drawn the attention of paranormal investigators over the years. Equipped with cameras, audio recorders, and other devices, they have spent nights near the grave in hopes of capturing evidence of the supernatural. During one investigation, a team recorded unexplained cold spots and fluctuations in electromagnetic readings near the site. Audio equipment picked up faint moaning and whispering voices that could not be linked to any natural source. Cameras recorded fleeting shadows darting just out of sight, and one night vision recording showed a ghostly figure standing near the headstone, its form indistinct but unmistakably human. Despite these findings, no clear explanation has emerged for the doctor's haunting. Some suggest that Dr. Caldwell's spirit is bound to the cemetery by guilt and regret, unable to find peace after a life marred by tragedy. Others theorize that the patient's restless spirits, trapped by their own suffering, keep the doctor's ghost tethered to the site in an eternal circle of sorrow. The grave itself has become a place of both fear and fascination. Cemetery caretakers advise visitors to approach with respect and caution, warning that the energy around the restless Dr.'s burial site is unlike anywhere else in the grounds. They recount stories of visitors suddenly feeling ill or overwhelmed, sometimes needing assistance to leave the area. Local legends have also grown to include warnings about the doctor's spirit. Some say that if you stand too close to the grave at night, you might hear the doctor's anguished voice calling out for forgiveness, or see the fleeting image of a man racked by sorrow and remorse. The story of the restless doctor serves as a haunting reminder of the human cost behind the stories carved into the cemetery's stones. It is a tale of a man who dedicated his life to healing, but was undone by misfortune and the harsh judgment of others. Now, long after his death, His spirit remains caught between worlds, a symbol of unresolved pain and the weight of regret. For those who visit the Sacramento Historic City Cemetery, the grave of Dr. Henry Caldwell stands as a solemn testament to the complexities of life and death, a place where history, mystery, and the supernatural intertwine. Whether one believes in ghosts or not, the stories of the restless doctor and his wandering patients invite reflection on the fragile nature of human life and the enduring power of memory. As night falls over the cemetery and shadows stretch long across the grounds, the air near the restless doctor's grave grows cold and heavy. Whispers echo softly, and unseen eyes seem to watch. It is a place where the past refuses to rest, and the spirits of those touched by tragedy continue to seek the peace that eluded them in life. As twilight descends upon the Sacramento Historic City Cemetery, a quiet hush settles over the winding pathways that snake through its ancient grounds. Among the shadows and fading light, visitors sometimes catch sight of a solitary woman carrying a flickering lantern, her form graceful yet elusive. Known to locals and ghost hunters alike as the Lantern Lady of the Pathway, her presence is wrapped in mystery and a gentle, haunting beauty. The legend of the Lantern Lady has been passed down through generations, rooted in the cemetery's rich history and the countless lives intertwined within its soil. She is said to have been a nurse in the late 19th century, a compassionate soul devoted to caring for the sick and dying in the nearby hospitals and homes. When her time came, it is believed that she chose to remain within the cemetery grounds, her spirit forever committed to watching over those buried beneath the earth. In life, the Lantern Lady was known for her kindness and tireless dedication. She walked the grounds by lantern light, ensuring that no patient was left alone in their final moments. When darkness fell and the shadows lengthened, she would guide the weak and the lost, her gentle touch offering comfort and peace. It is said that she held a lantern not only to light her path, but to symbolize hope amid despair. Now, as a spectral guardian, her spirit continues that sacred task. On certain evenings, as the sun dips below the horizon and twilight paints the sky in muted colors, the Lantern Lady emerges. Her lantern's flame flickers softly, casting a warm glow that cuts through the creeping gloom. Visitors who have witnessed her apparition describe her as a woman dressed in a flowing gown, her features gentle but faint, almost ethereal. Many who encounter the Lantern Lady report a sense of calm and reassurance. Those who follow the light of her lantern along the winding cemetery paths speak of feeling shielded from fear and darkness, as if protected by an unseen presence. The air around her seems to grow warmer, and a comforting stillness settles over the soul. One late autumn evening, a young man named Daniel visited the cemetery in search of answers. Struggling with grief after losing a loved one, he wandered the paths aimlessly, overwhelmed by sorrow and confusion. As dusk approached, Daniel noticed a faint glow ahead, flickering gently between the trees. Curious and drawn by the light, he followed it cautiously. The glow grew brighter, revealing the silhouette of a woman carrying an old-fashioned lantern. Her presence was calm and soothing, and Daniel felt an unexpected peace wash over him. The Lantern Lady turned slowly, her gaze meeting his with quiet understanding, before continuing down the path. Guided by the light, Daniel found himself walking steadily, his burden of grief easing with every step. The lantern's glow illuminated the way, and the oppressive weight of sadness began to lift. When the Lantern Lady finally vanished into the night, Daniel was left with a renewed sense of hope and a feeling that he was not alone in his sorrow. But not all encounters with the Lantern Lady are so serene. Some who have seen her lantern's flame report a strange and unsettling change, the flame shifting from its warm, golden light to an unnatural, eerie green. Witnesses say that, when the flame turns green, the atmosphere thickens with an otherworldly tension, and the calm that usually accompanies her presence becomes tinged with unease. On such nights, those near the Lantern Lady describe an almost hypnotic sensation, as if the spirit is warning of approaching danger or restless spirits nearby. The green flame flickers erratically, casting long shadows that dance and twist unnaturally. Some interpret this as a sign that the Lantern Lady is not only a guide for the peaceful dead, but also a protector against darker forces seeking to disturb the cemetery's quiet. Paranormal investigators who have studied the phenomenon suggest that the Lantern Lady's dual nature reflects the balance between light and shadow, life and death. Her warm golden flame offers comfort and guidance, while the green flame warns of unrest and protects the cemetery from malevolent entities. Stories of the Lantern Lady often conclude with a message of hope and protection. She is seen not only as a guardian of the departed, but also as a beacon for the living who find themselves lost in grief or fear. Her presence reminds all who wander the cemetery's pathways that even in the darkest moments, a light shines to lead the way home. Caretakers of the cemetery speak with reverence about the Lantern Lady, cautioning visitors to respect the sacred grounds and the spirits that dwell within. They share stories of the woman in the lantern light as a reminder that the cemetery is more than a resting place. For the dead, it is a place where memory, love, and the supernatural intertwine. For those who walk the cemetery at twilight, the chance to glimpse the Lantern Lady is both a privilege and a comfort. Her lantern, as flickering glow, serves as a symbol of enduring compassion and the eternal care that transcends death. As the night deepens and shadows lengthen, the Lantern Lady of the pathway continues her silent vigil. Her lantern light flickers softly, a guide through the darkness and a promise that no soul, no matter how lost, will ever wander alone. In a secluded corner of the Sacramento Historic City Cemetery lies a pair of graves that have long captivated the imaginations of locals and visitors alike. These two graves, resting side by side, belong to men whose lives were intertwined by rivalry, bitterness, and a final violent confrontation that has echoed through time. Known simply as the Eternal Duel, their story has become one of the cemetery's most chilling legends, one that speaks of vengeance, honor, and spirits unable to find peace. The two men were once fierce adversaries, men of skill and pride, who clashed repeatedly during their lives. Though the exact reasons for their animosity have been lost to history, tales suggest their feud was rooted in both personal and professional disputes, each man unwilling to back down or concede defeat. Their rivalry consumed them, driving them toward a fateful confrontation that would mark the end of their mortal conflict, but the beginning of a spectral one. On a moonlit night, decades ago, the men met for their final duel battle that would decide once and for all who was the superior swordsman. Witnesses of the time recall the tension in the air as the two men faced each other beneath a sky filled with stars, their blades gleaming faintly in the silver light. The clash was brutal and swift, echoing across the landscape, but it ended with both men dead, fallen by each other's hand. Their feud unresolved even in death. They were buried side by side, a decision made by their families or the community, in the hope that time might heal the wounds between them. Yet, instead of rest, the men were cursed to relive their final moments over and over again. An eternal duel beneath the moonlit sky, a battle forever etched into the fabric of the cemetery. Over the years, numerous visitors have reported strange occurrences near the graves. On certain nights, especially when the moon is full and the air is cool and still, witnesses say they hear the unmistakable clash of metal, the sharp, ringing clang of swords colliding. Alongside the sounds of combat, eerie cries and grunts fill the night air, as if the duel itself has been resurrected by the spirits of the fallen men. Those brave enough to approach the site on such nights sometimes claim to see ghostly figures engaged in battle. The apparitions are faint and shimmering, their movements fluid yet otherworldly. Two men, dressed in period clothing and armed with swords, duel relentlessly beneath the moonlight, their blades sparking with each strike. Their faces are often obscured by shadow, but the intensity of their conflict is clear in their every gesture. One night, a group of paranormal enthusiasts camped near the graves to witness the event firsthand. As midnight approached, the temperature dropped sharply, and an unnatural silence fell over the grounds. Suddenly, the sharp ring of metal meeting metal shattered the stillness. The group watched in awe as translucent figures emerged, reenacting the deadly dance of their final duel. The combatants moved with expert precision, their swords flashing in the moonlight. The sounds of their battle echoed for several minutes before fading away into the night. When dawn finally broke, the ethereal figures vanished, leaving behind only the quiet cemetery and the stillness of the early morning. Yet, the mystery deepens with what visitors find at the gravesite after these spectral duels. Though the graves themselves remain untouched and undisturbed, nearby tombstones often bear fresh scratches and mark deep gouges that appear overnight, as if made by the edge of a sword. These scratches are sharp and deliberate, unlike the natural wear of age and weather, and they serve as chilling proof of the duel's continuing presence. Caretakers of the cemetery have documented these marks, sometimes polishing the stones, only to find the scratches reappear the following morning. The inexplicable nature of these signs has only fueled the legend, as no logical explanation for their appearance has ever been found. Local residents tell stories of hearing the duels sounds from their homes on quiet nights. Some speak of restless dreams, where they witness the fight themselves, caught in the crossfire of a battle that transcends time. Others warn that the spirits of the two men are trapped in a cycle of vengeance, unable to forgive or forget, doomed to relive their final confrontation for eternity. Despite the fear and mystery surrounding the eternal duel, some see it as a powerful symbol, a testament to the strength of human emotions and the enduring consequences of conflict. The tale serves as a reminder that grudges and unresolved disputes can leave scars far deeper than the physical, and that peace can be elusive even in death. The cemetery's visitors often pause near the graves, some offering quiet prayers or lighting candles in the hope that the duel might one day end. Others leave tokens of peace flowers, small stones, or personal notes, hoping to soothe the restless spirits and bring an end to their endless battle. Historians and storytellers continue to share the tale, preserving it as part of the rich tapestry of the cemetery's haunted history. The eternal duel remains one of the most captivating and poignant legends, blending tragedy, honor, and the supernatural in a story that refuses to fade with time. As night falls over the Sacramento Historic City Cemetery, and the moon casts its pale light upon the graves, the clash of swords and the cries of combat may once again rise from the shadows, for beneath the silent stones, two souls continue their final duel, locked in battle forever, an eternal echo of a feud that transcends death itself. And there you have it, the 20 most haunting stories from the Sacramento Historic City Cemetery, a place where history and the supernatural collide in chilling harmony. Whether you believe these tales or not, the spirits of this old city cemetery whisper to us through time, reminding us that some stories never truly end. If you enjoyed wandering through these haunted grounds with me tonight, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more spine-tingling stories. And remember, the next time you pass a cemetery at dusk, tread lightly. You might just catch a glimpse of something that shouldn't be there. Until next time, keep your lights on and your heart brave. Sweet dreams, if you dare.